By nightfall, more wounded, like this man holding up the three-fingered salute of resistance, and more.
Dwarfed by hundreds of counter-protesters, the rally against the removal of the static KKK slogans, drowning out speeches from the white supremacists and flags and monuments, often perceived as symbols of hate and racism rather than regional heritage.
From his hands and clothes, the entire neighborhood lives this cruel irony.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hypatia Martinez, and I'm the mental health coordinator at Suffolk County Community College, the Michael J. Grant campus. I'm also the chairperson of the Faculty Diversity Committee that's bringing to you this event. We are called the MOSAIC Lounge, and we meet as faculty members of the college and students of the college and come together and have dialogues about things that are really important to us, things that we're confused about, and that we just want a safe space to be able to explore that. All right, so I encourage everyone to feel free to jump in at any point. This is being recorded and it does go on YouTube, just to let you know. So you got that warning ahead of time. And we do, and if you can, put on your cameras, otherwise on YouTube it just shows like a headless person, and we love to see your beautiful faces. But
Hi,
anyway,
Jen.
yeah. Hey, Jennifer. So today's topic, and we polled some students about what they wanted to talk about, because you guys generate the topics, not us. And a lot of students wanted to talk about Ukraine. And again, we're not coming to this as experts. Nobody here is a history, professor, or someone who's in the top. We want to talk about it more from, how are you guys feeling about it? Especially when there's so many other things going on. Where does the Ukraine fit? Do we have any questions about that? What role do we have to play, right? The internet has really created this global citizen community where things don't have to be in our neighborhood for us to have feelings about it. So wanted to see and just open it up to you guys to see, what do you think about the topic? What do you think we should be doing if we were doing anything at all?
Well, I think it's very scary, right? Like, it almost feels like we may have a third world war, and that's very frightening. I'm personally not very well informed about what's happening or what role we play, or I try not to because it's very emotionally taxing. But I think that we should be informed. So if either one of you can let me know or give me more information about it, that I would appreciate that.
What I learned at Yale sets the stage for successful student productions.
From Le Bernardin to world-class culinary instruction.
My doctorate from Stony Brook has led to a passion for problem solving.
From studying energy and matter to teaching at a place where my energy truly matters.
If you aspire to greatness, be inspired by professionals who have the credentials to teach anywhere, but understand how big ideas can bloom in small classes.
Get your start at Suffolk.
I did.
Register for classes today.
I am on the same page as Jennifer. I'm not it's all over social media. It's everywhere. You see it everywhere, but it's just so, I don't know, for me especially, I don't like war. I don't like it. It scares me. So I try to avoid it, but like it's out there and I have to see everything. But I just think that I don't know what the right word is for it, but it's very frightening. And the talk about what, like, the Ukraine president over there, like, all I know is that he's very strong and that he is out there standing strong. He's making videos, he's saying I won't back down and all this, but that's basically all I really know, and that's that.
I think it would be a horrible thing if he was killed. And the last report that I heard when I was watching the news, that 1,000 mercenaries are coming to kill him. And when you see all the death and destruction that's going on, especially the civilians on the ground, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems as though that group is the group that's doing that killing, because the regular soldiers weren't killing civilians. Now that they have those mercenaries who are being paid $1,200 a month, it puts a whole different price tag on what's going on with civilians. Civilians should never be involved in a war, but civilians are always the casualties of the war.
Oh my gosh, and there's so many pictures of babies there, and people are fleeing and leaving their kids behind and getting separated from their parents. I can't even imagine what that even feels like.
It's devastating. It's just to watch. And they've televised a lot of it. I mean, some of you might be too young to remember this. I don't want to age you, but when the Vietnam War occurred, that was one of the most televised wars. And while you're not seeing all the shooting on the ground, they're showing the dead bodies in this war and the casualties. They're not showing a lot of the soldiers from the Ukraine being killed, but they're showing the civilians. And that leads me to believe that there's a lot of propaganda going on also.
Speaking about propaganda, I saw this thing on TikTok, and it was about all from Russia, all the influencers from there. They were saying the same exact things on social media, saying like, we're fine, we're okay, we're safe. And they were saying like it's a propaganda because every single influencer was saying the same exact line, word for word.
Wow.
And it was crazy. So they're all saying like, oh, we're okay, like we're doing good, everything's fine, yada yada, and they don't have any connection with like what's really going on.
I think that's a big difference between what's happening now and previous wars, because we're getting information, like Bill said, not just once a day from one source, but we're getting thousands of tweets and opinions and all kinds of things. And then mixed with that, we have propaganda. So then we say, well, what is the truth? And to your point, Jennifer, I don't know if you, maybe this is too basic, but I will just say that there was a time when Russia was the Soviet Union, and it possessed a lot of different countries, including half of Berlin in Germany and Ukraine. And then it was broken up, and Ukraine and some of those other countries became independent democracies. So they vote for their leaders. And Putin decides that he doesn't like that anymore. And so he wants to reunify the empire, his empire. And that's why there's this war. The Soviets are going into Ukraine, and they're people, modern cities, like you said, professionals and beautiful homes and cars and jobs and all those things. And they're just destroying the city so that he can have his empire back. Now that's what I know from the news, but you guys, I think the other thing is to say, like, why does it influence? Why do we care? What's our role? So I'll be quiet now and let you guys take it from there.
My thing is, like, how is that allowed? Like nowadays, like how are we okay with this? Like, how is it that we're not doing more? How is it that, someone decides to do that to another country, and it's in a sense okay,
Right. Well, here's the thing. The big issue there is with NATO, right? You may hear that a lot in the news. NATO. Okay, so that's a national alliance, right? That will come to the defense of any member that gets in trouble. Okay, so we're like the band. But Ukraine is not a member of NATO, and that's why we have to be very careful. We're tiptoeing and not getting involved directly. Because if we get involved directly, the fear is that then we are at war with Russia. We're supplying them with arms, but we're not like going there and shooting down planes and doing those things. And it's not okay. And that's the question. That really is the question. Like, when does somebody have to take some kind of action, more significant action to help these people?
Like, it's bound to happen. It's bound to happen. It's bound to get out of hand. I mean, if it's not already. So, it just feels like we're just watching someone being bullied and we're not doing anything. And that's especially the reason why I try, like Jocelyn said, to avoid it, because it's so emotionally taxing. You can't, I personally feel like I can't do anything significant. And it's very frustrating.
These are very good concerns, and there is a lot to be concerned about. You're watching tens of thousands of civilians senselessly murdered on the streets with their children. I saw some images of dogs, and it just got me so upset just watching a dog after this owner was killed sit in the middle of the street, just petrified, totally petrified. And then I listened to some, they had a radio transcription of a Russian soldier talking to his girlfriend. They said they killed the local dog and ate the dog because they have no food. So, you're hearing stuff like that, and then you realize the barbarity of war and what happens in war, the senseless war. And I wanted to piggyback, Joan, off of what you said. It's so true. This guy, his legacy, it appears, is that he wants to recapture the regime and the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, and all those countries in Europe there, right in that area, are in grave danger. I feel that America is in grave danger. I don't think we're safe at all. I really don't. After watching this, I think we have a lot to be concerned about.
And a propaganda war too.
Yes.
Professor, I know you said, you mentioned in one of her classes, Professor O'Connell, that one of your students had picked their topic on how we can help. Like, did she give her speech already? What are some ideas?
Not yet. She didn't give the speech yet. But I did want to say something else too. I have a friend who was a student at Suffolk who actually went back to fight in the war.
I know of somebody that said that they were going to enlist to go help out in Ukraine.
There are a lot of Americans on the ground training people.
And there are a lot of refugees too that will need help. So
I think go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's fine. I was going to say something else.
Well, I was, as someone, I'm one of the reasons why, I'm a therapist is I find, human behavior so interesting. And the one thing that I can almost, like, on one hand, I understand how war happens, right? If we study World War II, how did Hitler get an entire country or half the country to believe that Jews were the enemy and to go along with the idea of concentration camps, and all of that. But still, as I'm watching these images of towns being obliterated, right? Everyone is being killed in these towns. I'm still like, I can't wrap my head around the idea that, because we have to remember that the soldiers that are doing this, they're regular people, right? They're not these, millionaires. They're not hanging out with Putin, right? How do you get, and I've even seen images of young Russian soldiers crying, right? Because they don't want to do this. They don't believe in this. And that's the thing with war that I just can't, like, how is it that we can do that a human being can go into someone else's space and kill them just randomly? It's like my brain can't wrap itself around that. And I think when you add all the things that we've been going through in the last 2 years too, we've never lived in a time like this. We had, the Black Lives Matter, we had a pandemic, we had a historic election. You know, having Trump, whether you liked him or not, he definitely changed this country and the dialogue in this country. But it's like, I don't know about you guys, but my brain is white.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but it's just like, and sometimes I wonder if I pull away from the news and I detach myself to actually protect myself. Like I consider myself a civic-minded person. I care about people. It's what I do for a living. But sometimes I'm like, I can't.
It's
I don't
too
have
much.
to withstand.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
Yep. It's
Good
a lot.
point. How would you psychoanalyze Hypatia Putin? How would you psychoanalyze him?
Putin? Oh, he's a classic narcissist psychopath. You know, and a lot of people, which is I always side eye a lot of people that rise to power, because to have that level of ambition, the way that our systems are created in this world, you have to step on people, right? You have to sort of tell lies and to manipulate and all of that. So I'm always very suspicious of people in positions of leadership like that. But no, he is classic, textbook, you know, no empathy, only is focused on attaining his own wealth and focusing on what he needs to focus on at the expense of other people, you know, and all the minions that he has around him, right? Because I mean, they assassinate people all the time. I'm like, I can't believe that he hasn't been assassinated yet, but he must have that, his little protective group on lock, because
They're probably former KGB. But you know what, now that you said that, you know what, it made me think of something. And I've thought about this for a while. How come all these oligarchs who have been violated with sanctions aren't putting a hit out on this guy?
I know. I mean, I'm sure there are hits, but they're not working.
You're not hearing about it, and you're probably not going to hear about it.
Yeah. Whereas Zelensky, he's already survived several assassination attempts, you know, because if he goes down.
He's a hot topic. He's amazing, the stuff that he's doing. Can I express a personal opinion?
Yeah.
The last president and this president and the president before and the president before that, if they had to stand up for their country and put arms in their hands, they'd run. They'd take their wealth. This is my opinion, remember. They would take their wealth and they would be out of here and leave all of us to die. I'll just shut my mouth on that one.
Well, no, it is. I mean, you see him. He's with the soldiers.
He's crazy.
Didn't we?
No helmet, no nothing.
Didn't we like offer to save him from there, to like take him away from Ukraine? And he said no, like I'm staying, like he's like I'm here, and he like showed video of him like standing in front of something. I don't know what it was, like the Capitol or something.
Yep. He said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition.
I need ammunition.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's a whole contention issue also. Where is all the ammunition?
Where does it come from?
Where is it? What are we doing as a country that we're helping? But where is all the ammunition? These Ukrainians are amazing. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're amazing at war.
Well, they're defending their home, right? They're really,
I wonder if we would do that as a culture.
Did you this is something that I saw, but did you hear about the lady that was feeding the Russian oh my gosh, the Russian soldiers sunflower seeds so that when they get killed by the
grow.
I was like, oh my god, I was like, it's crazy.
and the Russian soldier said some off-cuff remark, man, we don't want any trouble. Right.
Yeah.
And then they didn't even know where they were. Some of them didn't even know. One guy landed on his parachute. He said, can you tell me how to get to Kiev? He's asking the Ukrainians, how do you get there? Because he thinks he's on a training mission.
It's crazy. It's literally crazy. And then there's some Ukrainian people that are like actually helping. Aren't they like helping the Russian soldiers? Why can't I say this word? But aren't they like helping them? I don't know if it's true or not, but like that's what I saw. I told you, it pops up. I don't want to see it, but it just does. And when it does pop up, I'm like, I need to watch it. Like I can't be naive to the stuff. Like it's going around. Like I need to.
In the beginning, I was watching a lot, and now every day I just try to get an update of what's going on. But like Joan said, you don't know what's true and what's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. There's the media. There's the power of the media. They can influence so easily.
Yep.
I think the one thing that I've noticed that's been blatant, actually, it's almost embarrassingly blatant from the Western media, is how they're framing this, right? A lot of newscasters have been talking about the fact that this is a war in a European country, right? And they're like, this is unheard of, Europeans, white people with blue eyes, like we're not used to seeing that, and the sympathy that we have, that we should have for the Ukrainian refugees. But the conversation is how, this battle has been going on in the Middle East, in Africa, and we haven't, the media anyway, hasn't looked at those refugees in the same way.
That's so true.
And so that, some of the commentary, I'm like, did you just hear what you said? It's really disturbing too. So I think that also has some people kind of not being engaged as well, because then they're like, oh, if the refugees are white, then we should feel bad for them and we should care about this war. But if they're not, then it's just, too barbaric, uncivilized communities fight. Let them fight it out. If you guys have noticed that.
I actually didn't think of it until
That's
you
it.
mentioned it right
Great
now.
analysis.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
We're about 5 minutes to wind down here.
Well, I did find the video if people did want to. It's a very short breakdown on what is going on over there. So I'll give it up to you guys, and Bill, you can edit this part if you guys want to watch the video or if we want to keep talking.
It's a YouTube?
It's on Al Jazeera.
Okay. Can you tell me the name of it? I'll get it on YouTube.
Okay.
And I can put it on for you.
Because I do think that we should, since we've all expressed wanting to know a little bit more, why not? I said,
okay, got it.
That's the website, but it's not YouTube.
Okay, let me allow all. Let me tie you all in. Do you see?
Yes.
Let's talk about Ukraine and the threat it's facing from Russia. President Vladimir Putin has been building up his forces along the border. There are now tens of thousands of soldiers there.
NATO is alarmed about Russia's military buildup on Ukraine's borders. New intelligence suggests the Kremlin is in advanced stages of planning an invasion of Ukraine.
Russia, the U.S., and other big players have been talking, but people are still nervous.
Any provocation from any side can be a trigger for more serious conflict.
So what's behind all this? To understand this story, here are 5 things you need to know. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Here's Ukraine. It's sandwiched between Russia on one side, Belarus to the north, and the rest of Europe on the other side. And that geography puts Ukraine on the front line in a big power play between Russia and the West. And here's the first thing to know about what's going on right now. It looks like Russia's ready for a fight. All along the border with Ukraine, there are around 100,000 Russian soldiers, hundreds of tanks, and lots of heavy artillery.
When I talk to Russian military experts, they say that there's missiles in places where they shouldn't be, and that tanks are fully dressed. And this idiom doesn't mean that the tanks have lipstick on or their earrings on. It means that they have metal cages on and they're ready for war.
We are very, very concerned, but we are not panicking. We live with Russian threat for almost 8 years, so army is preparing, but definitely, it's not very comfortable.
Thing is, the relationship between Russia and Ukraine has not been very comfortable for a while now. and that's putting it mildly. So here's the second thing you need to know. There's history between these two. This is the quick version. Ukraine and Russia were both part of the Soviet Union. When the USSR broke up in 1991, they became separate, independent countries. Russia was the most powerful country in the region, and still is.
Russia has a very parochial view of Ukraine. Russia sees Ukraine as its little brother. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, of course, but Ukraine has its own independent identity. And part of what we're seeing here, and part of what we've been seeing since 2013, is so Moscow does not want to let Ukraine go.
So what happened in 2013? Well, that year kicked off a really tumultuous time for Ukraine. It was tested. Would it lean more towards its European neighbors in the West or stay within Russia's orbit? The president back then, Viktor Yanukovych, was about to sign a political and economic deal with EU. But instead, he signed a deal with Moscow, which a lot of Ukrainians saw as a sign of pressure from Russia. There were huge protests that went on for months. Yanukovych was kicked out, and the EU deal was eventually signed by a new president.
It was a protest against attempts to impose authoritarian model on Ukraine.
Now, while all this was happening in early 2014, President Putin made a big move. He sent forces into Crimea. It's a peninsula that had been part of Ukraine since the 1950s, but Russian speakers are a majority of the population, and Crimea always had close ties with Russia. There was a referendum in Crimea, which Ukraine and the West said was illegal, but the people there voted to join Russia. And the next thing we knew, Russia had annexed Crimea.
The referendum in Crimea was a clear violation of Ukrainian constitutions and international law.
Nobody predicted in 2014 that Russia would attack Ukraine. It happened.
But it didn't end with Crimea, because things also kicked off in eastern Ukraine. We're talking about the Donbass region. It's made up of Luhansk and Donetsk, and is a part of Ukraine that has a big population of ethnic Russians. In April 2014, pro-Russian separatists started taking territory, and the fighting became a full-scale war between them and the Ukrainian military. The separatists took control of two areas. They named them the People's Republics of Luhansk and Donetsk, and said they were independent from Ukraine. Russia was accused of backing the separatists with troops and weapons, although Moscow has always denied it. 8 years later, diplomatic initiatives to resolve the crisis have basically failed. More than 14,000 people have been killed, with 1.5 million forced to leave their homes. The status of eastern Ukraine still hangs in the balance, and the fighting hasn't stopped. So that's the history lesson, which helps to explain where we are now. But then there's NATO, and that's the next thing you need to know about. With everything that's happened in the last 8 years, Ukraine's been getting a lot of military support from the West. It's now closer than ever to NATO, and Russia doesn't like it.
In Washington, the signing ceremony of the North Atlantic Treaty.
Now remember, NATO is the military alliance founded by Western countries after World War II to band together against the Soviet Union. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, NATO's expanded eastward. NATO now includes countries that Russia sees as being in its backyard, like Poland, Bulgaria, and the Baltic states. And Russia believes that's a threat to its own security. It doesn't want Ukraine to be next on the list, even though most experts think that's pretty unlikely anyway.
Ясно, что один из важнейших элементов сегодня — это стабильность и безопасность, обеспечение безопасности вот на этом участке, на этом направлении. И мы должны понять, как будет обеспечена наша безопасность. Поэтому без всяких хитростей мы просто прямо поставили вопрос, что никакого движения НАТО на восток дальше быть не должно.
Now, Putin recently made some pretty big demands, which he wants as legal guarantees. Among other things, he wants NATO to stop any kind of military cooperation with Ukraine and to rule out NATO membership for Ukraine or anyone else.
And that's a red line. We know that the West will not agree to that. Washington can't agree to that.
Russia is demanding very, very complicated things. Putin is trying not to speak about Russia's proposal as an ultimatum. But in fact, it's an ultimatum.
So Putin's made those big demands and he has all those troops on the border. But what's his actual strategy? Well, the next thing you need to know is that some people think there's a lot more going on here.
People want to understand the logic of Putin, and it's still not clear.
One theory is that this is an elaborate bluff. Putin is trying to scare the heck out of everyone. He's trying to scare Biden, he's trying to scare the Ukrainians, and he's trying to scare Western Europe into a deal.
Another theory is that this isn't just about NATO and military security. It's also about Putin's own political security. If Ukraine looks like a successful alternative to his way of running a country, well, maybe that makes Putin more vulnerable.
Putin is afraid of democracy and freedoms. And you have Ukraine on his borders where many Russian-speaking Ukrainians, many Russians live, and it's a free country. So this was interpreted by Putin as an existential threat to his authoritarian regime.
If Ukraine succeeds, then all of his excuses are invalid. Russia and Ukraine are similar enough that he won't be able to say that democracy is impossible in Russia, right?
Okay, so here's the last thing you need to know. The current state of play. The US and its allies have been threatening tough sanctions against Putin if he does go ahead and invade Ukraine. They'd be designed to crush Russia's economy and hit its tech and defense sectors.
Aggression against Ukraine will be met with massive consequences.
But some experts question whether sanctions are much of a deterrent and think Russia is already making a plan for how it would deal with them. Now, the US and Russia and others have been holding talks. The idea is to calm things down and avoid a war. But no one seems to be budging.
We underscore that for us it's absolutely mandatory to make sure that Ukraine never ever becomes member of NATO.
Russia has to make a stark choice: de-escalation and diplomacy, or confrontation and consequences.
One thing's for sure. This is a high-stakes situation for Russia, for the US and NATO, and especially for the people of Ukraine. The big question is, what's Putin's next move?
I know him for many, many years. He will be tough till the end. He will be tough till the real red line. And this red line is Ukraine.
Wow.
Let's talk about Ukraine.
That became a little clearer for me.
Thank you for that. That was awesome.
So basically,
thank you.
So basically, it's not going to stop because both sides are not going to give up on what they want.
Yeah, because I mean, their countries are at stake. The way that they live is at stake. Russia definitely does not want Ukraine to win this. I don't even know how Ukraine can, you know what I'm like, how can that small country go against Russia?
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
huge.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of American corporations have pulled out of Russia. So they are definitely losing money, but Putin,
He's just going to keep on going.
Yeah.
He's going to keep on going.
So
It's really sad.
Yeah. So any last thoughts?
No, thank you. That was very informative.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
We want to thank all of you for spending time with us. It's so awesome to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
And to do it as friends and just talk to each other. It's just awesome.
I always
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love walking away from these things knowing something.
Definitely learned a lot.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to keep doing these. Professor O'Connell's going to tell you the dates, but our next one is going to be in person. I hope you guys will come Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Sac de Coast Building, room 124. We're going to be doing an amazing exercise together that I think will be also life-changing. for you guys. So thank you again. And when Professor O'Connell has this all edited, he will be sending it to you guys. You can see yourselves on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll probably send it out tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye.